Compliance is just expensive paranoia, Edward. We're moving to a smarter, leaner model. Ava Miller's words hung in the sterile glass conference room like a death sentence. After 15 years of protecting Integrity Financial Group from regulatory disasters, I was being terminated by a COO who thought disruption was a business strategy. The morning had started normally, reviewing overnight regulatory updates from London and Hong Kong, catching a suspicious pattern in our Asian trading desk that needed investigation. By 3 p.m., I was sitting across from Ava and her nephew Owen, watching my career evaporate. Her designer perfume mixed with Owen's excessive cologne created a nauseating cloud. He fidgeted with a Mont Blanc pen, holding it like a kindergartner with a crayon. His Wharton MBA diploma, so fresh the frame still had price stickers, hung crooked behind Ava's shoulder. "Your systems are thorough," Ava continued. "But we need innovation, not paranoia. Owen's bringing fresh perspective." I studied Owen, 26, soft hands that had never traced a money laundering trail at 3 a.m., eyes that saw compliance as a checkbox rather than a lifeline. He'd last maybe 3 months before the first violation. 6 if he was lucky. "I've built this system to protect the company," I said calmly. "I hope Owen understands what he's inheriting." Ava's smile was all tech startup confidence. "I'm sure he'll manage fine. Security will escort you out." As I surrendered my ID badge, 15 years reduced to a piece of plastic, one thought crystallized. Compliance is like a submarine's hull. You only notice the rivets when they start popping. Ava had just fired the only person who knew where every rivet was. "I'm Edward Reeves, 52 years old, divorced, amicably. Sarah got tired of competing with regulatory manuals for attention. 2 kids in college burning through my savings faster than a Ponzi scheme collapses. My condo looks like a law library had a baby with a maritime museum. Shelves of regulatory guides, Federal Reserve bulletins, and SEC interpretations share space with intricate ship models. My one non-compliance obsession, inherited from my father, a submarine engineer who taught me that catastrophic failures always start small. Every morning at 5 a.m. sharp, I'd wake to review overnight global regulatory updates. Coffee brewing while I traced patterns others missed, like that morning in 2018 when I spotted irregularities in our private equity transfers that turned out to be a $50 million money laundering operation. The FBI commendation letter sits in my drawer, classified. At Integrity Financial, they called me the regulatory oracle. Not because I memorized rules, any computer can do that, but because I understood why regulations existed. Each rule was written in someone's financial blood. "Edward doesn't just know the rules," our former CEO used to say. "He knows which ones will kill you." My fatal flaw? I couldn't simplify. When junior analysts asked questions, I'd launch into 40-minute explanations about interconnected regulations, historical precedents, enforcement patterns. My briefings required briefings. But complexity was the point. Financial crime thrives in the spaces between simple explanations. Over 15 years, I'd built something beautiful and terrible. The contingency audit modules. Think of them as watertight compartments in a submarine's hull. Each module monitored specific regulatory zones, designed to escalate alerts if human oversight decreased. Not because I didn't trust people, but because I understood pressure. Good people make bad choices when quarterly earnings loom. The modules were my masterpiece and my curse. Too complex for anyone else to fully understand. Too critical to disable, too integrated to replace. Perfect job security, I'd thought. I'd thought wrong. Ava Miller arrived at Integrity 6 months before my firing, strutting through our conservative halls like a peacock in a penguin colony. Harvard MBA, 2 years at a revolutionary fintech startup that burned through $30 million before folding, spoke exclusively in LinkedIn buzzwords. Our first interaction set the tone. I'd submitted a critical report about new anti-money laundering requirements that would require system overhauls. "This seems alarmist," she said, scrolling through her phone while I explained. "Scare tactics. It's federal law effective in 8 months. We'll be agile. Pivot when needed." She actually said pivot. About federal banking regulations. Ava saw financial services like software. Iterate fast. Fix bugs later. She'd never seen a compliance bug that cost 9 figures and criminal charges. Her nephew Owen arrived 3 months later. Fresh Wharton MBA, younger than some of our junior analysts. Confidence inversely proportional to competence. I tried training him once, explaining our transaction monitoring protocols. "Why so manual?" he interrupted. "AI could handle this." "AI can't testify before Congress when it misses a terrorist financing network." He smirked. "That's old school thinking." Old school. I'd been preventing financial crimes while he was still figuring out algebra. Ava's mandate was simple. Cut compliance costs by 30%. "We're not a regulatory agency," she announced at an all-hands. "We're a financial innovator. Compliance should enable, not constrain." The younger employees ate it up. The veterans, those who remembered the 2008 crisis, the Wells Fargo scandal, the Deutsche Bank raids, grew quiet. "Facebook moves fast and breaks things," Ava said at one board meeting. "Why can't we?" "Because when banks break," I replied, "people lose homes, retirements vanish, lives end." She laughed. Actually laughed. "So dramatic, Edward. This is why we need fresh blood." If she only knew how much old blood had been spilled learning these lessons. The axe fell on a Friday afternoon. Corporate America's favorite execution time. Monday's problem, HR always says. "Edward, thanks for joining us," Ava began, reading from a script some consultant probably charged $50,000 to write. "As part of our digital transformation initiative, we're eliminating redundancies and modernizing our compliance framework." Redundant. 15 years of crisis prevention reduced to redundant. Owen sat silently, already eyeing my office's corner view. His nervous energy radiated like a beacon. The kid knew he was in over his head, but thought ambition could substitute for expertise. "Your last day is today," Ava continued. "Owen will be taking over as head of compliance, implementing cutting-edge solutions that align with our innovation goals. The Federal Reserve's new transaction monitoring requirements start in 6 months, I said. The implementation guide is 847 pages. Owen should start with Appendix J. That's where they hide the criminal penalties. Owen scribbled notes. Ava waved dismissively. "I'm sure Owen can handle some regulatory paperwork." Some paperwork, like calling the Pacific Ocean some water. Security arrived, Rick, who I'd helped get his son a trading floor internship. His apologetic shrug said everything. I packed methodically. My father's submarine engineering manual, the crystal paperweight from our zero-violation streak, the photo of my kids. "I need your system passwords," Owen said, trying to sound authoritative. I handed him a folder. "Everything's documented. Pay attention to the contingency audit modules. They're sensitive. Like reactor controls, they need constant adjustment, or they'll redline." "We'll modernize those too," he said. As Rick escorted me through the trading floor, past analysts I'd trained, past systems I'd built, I felt like a submarine captain watching civilians take command. They'd flood the compartments within hours. At home, I poured 3 fingers of scotch and studied my models. The USS Thresher caught my eye. Lost in 1963 due to a minor valve failure during a test dive. 129 souls lost because someone thought a small leak wasn't worth addressing. "They always think it's just one rivet," I said to the empty room. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I had one card left to play. My contingency audit modules were born from 15 years of near misses and actual disasters. Each module addressed a specific vulnerability I'd discovered, usually at 2 a.m. with federal investigators breathing down our necks. The transaction velocity monitor came after we almost missed a high-frequency trading manipulation in 2012. It tracked not just volume, but acceleration patterns. Legitimate trading has a rhythm, manipulation has a heartbeat. But you needed experience to hear the difference. The regulatory change tracker emerged from a brutal 2015 audit where new SEC rules had been published in obscure bulletins. It scraped 17 different regulatory feeds, correlating changes with our existing practices. Without interpretation, though, it was just noise. The client risk aggregator, my personal favorite, connected dots across seemingly unrelated accounts. Money launderers love complexity. This module hated it. It would flag patterns invisible to conventional screening. But false positives were common without human filtering. Each module was like a submarine's ballast tank, maintaining equilibrium automatically unless someone who understood fluid dynamics adjusted the trim. Owen was about to take a wrench to a system he thought was plumbing. The documentation I'd left was comprehensive but dense. 500 pages of technical specifications written in my characteristic style. Accurate, thorough, impenetrable to anyone who hadn't lived through the crises that birthed them. But here's what I didn't document. My relationship with Patricia Chen at the Federal Reserve. We'd worked together during the 2018 investigation. She knew my systems, trusted my judgment. More importantly, she knew when to look closer. I sent her one email before Integrity's lawyers could enforce my non-disclosure agreement. Subject line, career update. Body, Patricia, I'm no longer at Integrity as of today. Owen Miller will be handling compliance going forward. I'm sure he'll maintain the same standards we've discussed over the years. Best, Edward. That's all. No violations, no leaked information. Just a notification that her most trusted contact was gone, replaced by someone she'd never heard of. Patricia Chen was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. She'd know what that meant, and she'd know when to schedule her next examination. Owen's transformation of compliance took exactly 32 days. I tracked it through LinkedIn posts and industry contacts who called with increasing alarm. Revolutionizing compliance through innovation, his first post crowed, complete with a photo of him dismantling my manual review protocols. The comments from his MBA cohort were enthusiastic. The silence from compliance professionals was deafening. He replaced my custom modules with off-the-shelf software, industry-standard solutions that knew nothing about Integrity's specific vulnerabilities, like replacing submarine blueprints with boat instructions. 2 senior analysts, Maria and Derek, both with me for a decade, were laid off. Redundant human oversight, per Owen's efficiency report. They called me devastated. He doesn't understand what we do, Maria said. Kept talking about automating judgment calls. Document everything, I advised. Save your emails. And Maria, you might want to update your resume. Send it to Patricia Chen at the Fed. She values experience. Owen's masterpiece was his new dashboard. All green lights, all the time. He'd essentially built a system that told him what he wanted to hear. Meanwhile, my disabled contingency audit modules ran in the background, faithfully logging what he didn't want to see. The Federal Reserve Bulletin about new transaction monitoring arrived in month 2. 47 pages of dense requirements that I would have spent a week analyzing. Owen skimmed it in an hour, implemented surface changes, marked it complete. Junior analysts started reaching out privately. Something's wrong, one messaged. We're seeing patterns that aren't being flagged. Document everything, became my refrain. Email concerns, create records, and if you happen to know any federal examiners, You might mention your concerns. Professionally, of course. By month 3, Owen was bragging at industry conferences about cutting compliance overhead by 40%. Edward Reeves built a fortress, he said at one panel. I'm building a smart gateway. I made sure Patricia Chen received a copy of that conference program. Professional courtesy. She liked to know who was speaking about compliance innovation. 6 months after my departure, Patricia Chen arrived for the Federal Reserve's routine examination. I knew Patricia, brilliant, thorough, took personal offense at regulatory violations. Under my watch, her visits were almost social. This time would be different. It started small. A discrepancy in transaction reporting that Owen's system had missed. Patricia's eyes narrowed. I could picture it perfectly. Can you explain this pattern? She would have asked. Owen, confident in his green dashboard, probably dismissed it. Minor technical glitch. We'll correct it. Patricia Chen didn't believe in glitches. She believed in patterns. And patterns led her to my contingency audit module's logs. What she found was 6 months of meticulously documented disasters. Every transaction Owen had marked reviewed without investigation. Every regulatory update he'd misinterpreted. Every client red flag he'd ignored. The dominoes fell fast. Suspicious transactions just under reporting thresholds. Classic structuring. New requirements completely missed. Clear violations. Client accounts with textbook money laundering indicators. Overlooked for months. Owen's panic manifested in increasingly frantic emails to software vendors. The system you sold us isn't catching these issues. It's working as designed, they replied. But it requires proper configuration for your specific needs. The exact expertise Owen had dismissed as redundant. Ava's transformation from innovation evangelist to cornered executive took 3 days. Patricia's team expanded. More examiners arrived. Boxes of documents left the building. Then came the nightmare revelation. Maxfield Capital, whose patterns Owen had ignored, was running a sophisticated money laundering operation. Worse, 2 other major clients were using Integrity for illegal fund transfers, all hidden in plain sight among alerts Owen had disabled. The FBI arrived on a Tuesday morning. I watched the news from my condo, coffee cooling as reporters broadcast from outside Integrity's headquarters. Federal investigators are examining what sources describe as catastrophic compliance failures at Integrity Financial Group. My phone exploded. Former colleagues, competitors, reporters. I answered one call, Patricia Chen. Edward, she said, we'll need you as an expert witness. Of course, I'll bring my documentation. All 500 pages, every page, every warning, every system they disabled. See you Monday. Justice was coming, and I had receipts. The investigation lasted 3 months. FBI forensic accountants joined Federal Reserve examiners in dissecting Integrity's operations. They called me as an expert witness on month 2. The Federal Building's conference room smelled like government. Burnt coffee and disappointment. Lead investigator Special Agent Martinez had my personnel file, my documentation, my warnings. Mr. Reeves, can you explain this contingency audit module's function? I pulled up the specifications. This module flags unusual transaction velocity patterns. In layman's terms, it distinguishes between legitimate high-frequency trading and potential manipulation. And this alert here flagged 17 times over 2 months. Classic layering pattern. Small transactions designed to obscure source and destination. Each flag required human review to determine legitimacy. What happened to these flags? According to the logs, they were bulk dismissed as system noise. By whom? The system shows Owen Miller's credentials. My testimony took 2 days, explaining each module, each ignored warning, each preventable disaster. I brought my documentation, 5 binders of warnings, recommendations, risk assessments. The submarine metaphors finally found their audience. It's like ignoring a pressure gauge because you don't like what it's telling you, I explained. Eventually, physics wins. Media coverage exploded. Integrity Financial's innovation leads to largest compliance failure in decade. My name appeared in every article, always as former compliance head Edward Reeves, who was terminated for being redundant. Owen's deposition leaked. His admissions were damning, disabling systems he didn't understand, ignoring alerts he couldn't interpret, prioritizing metrics over meaning. Ava's attempts to blame me backfired spectacularly. Investigators found her emails calling compliance expensive paranoia, her directives to cut costs regardless of Edward's doomsday scenarios. The worst revelation came in month 3. One ignored client had run a $100 million Ponzi scheme through integrity accounts. My modules had flagged it 43 times. This wasn't a failure of systems, Agent Martinez told reporters. This was a failure of leadership that didn't value expertise. Patricia Chen found me after the testimony. You knew this would happen. I built systems to prevent it. They chose to disable them. No, she said. You knew I'd find it. That email wasn't just a career update. I shrugged. You're a thorough examiner. I knew you'd do your job. She studied me. Remind me never to fire you. Don't worry, your competence is showing. The collapse was spectacular. $275 million in federal fines, the largest in Integrity's history. Criminal charges for 3 clients whose illegal activities went undetected. Shareholder lawsuits seeking damages exceeding $500 million. Ava Miller's termination came via emergency board meeting. No innovation jargon, no disruption speak. Just terminated for gross negligence and reckless disregard for regulatory requirements. Her perp walk made every financial news channel. Designer suit replaced with federal gray. Innovation replaced with handcuffs. She'd thought she was Facebook. She was Enron. But the aftermath was worse. Personal lawsuits from shareholders. Her assets frozen pending investigation. Industry blacklisting so complete she couldn't get a job at a payday lender. Last I heard, she was living with her mother, fighting bankruptcy while dodging process servers. Her LinkedIn vanished. Her Twitter went private. She became a ghost story financial executives tell their children. This is what happens when you think you're smarter than regulations. Owen Miller's career became a case study in spectacular failure. His name so toxic that recruiters used it as a verb. Don't Owen Miller this placement. He tried pivoting. Consulting firm, closed in 2 months. Fintech startup, no funding. Cryptocurrency venture, SEC investigation. Each failure more desperate than the last. His LinkedIn became performance art in desperation. Seeking new opportunities in financial innovation became open to any role in finance, became considering opportunities in all industries, became silence. Wharton quietly removed him from their alumni spotlight page. His fraternity brothers stopped returning calls. 6 months after the collapse, he was working at his father's car dealership in New Jersey. Not in finance. In finance, he was forever the kid who cost a firm $275 million. He tried changing his name. Google remembered. The internet always remembers. Integrity's stock plummeted 60% in 3 days. Trading halted twice. Board members resigned. Clients fled like rats from a sinking submarine. The board called me, desperate. Name your price, Chairman Robertson pleaded. We need you back. I'm retired, I lied, watching Integrity's death spiral from my home office. We'll double, triple your salary, full autonomy, report directly to the board. You had me, I reminded him. You chose innovation over information. Good luck with that. Other firms circled like sharks. My phone became a recruiter convention. Apex Wealth Management's CEO, David Kim, made the best offer. Not just money, but philosophy. "We want to hire you because you're paranoid," he said over lunch. "I need someone who sees disasters before they happen. Someone who understands that in finance, innovation without wisdom is just gambling with other people's money. Double my integrity salary, full team, complete autonomy. And most importantly, a CEO who understood that compliance wasn't a cost center. It was a survival mechanism. When do I start?" 6 months later, I stood in my corner office at Apex Wealth Management, watching sunset paint the financial district gold. My team, 12 analysts who understood that complexity wasn't the enemy, had just finished implementing our new compliance framework. "Dad, you're famous!" My daughter Emily burst in, Wall Street Journal in hand. "The man who saved compliance. That's what they're calling you." I read the article, a retrospective on integrity's collapse and the industry's newfound respect for compliance professionals. My photo looked tired but vindicated. "I didn't save anything," I told her. "I just built good systems and got out of the way." Training new analysts had become my favorite part. Young minds eager to understand why regulations existed, not just what they said. "Compliance is like a submarine's hull," I told them during orientation. "Every rivet matters. One failure might seem small, but pressure finds weakness. A hull breach starts with one failed rivet. In our world, that rivet could be a single transaction, one overlooked pattern, one dismissed alert." They took notes, asked questions, understood. These weren't Owen's green lights. These were professionals who knew that yellow meant caution and red meant stop. News trickled in about integrity, acquired for pennies on the dollar by a European bank. Their compliance department now run by Maria, my former senior analyst who'd been dismissed as redundant. She called occasionally, updating me on the rebuild. "We use your modules as teaching tools," she said. "What happens when expertise walks out the door?" One evening my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Edward, please don't hang up. Ava Miller, broken, desperate." "What do you want, Ava?" I wanted to apologize. And to ask, do you know anyone who might hire me? Anywhere? I'll do anything. Compliance, operations, anything. Ava, you're unemployable in finance. You know that." Silence. Then sobbing. "I've lost everything. My savings, my reputation, everything. I can't even get hired at Target. They Google me and—" "You made your choice," I interrupted. "You called compliance expensive paranoia. Turns out paranoia would have been cheaper. Please, Edward, you won. Isn't that enough? I didn't win anything. I was right. There's a difference, and being right doesn't help the pensioners whose money was laundered through your innovation. I have nothing left. You have what you valued. Efficiency. You efficiently destroyed your life. Congratulations on the optimization." I hung up. Some bridges, once burned, illuminate everything. That evening, I completed my latest model, USS Nautilus, the first nuclear submarine. Revolutionary but safe because every system had a backup. Every innovation balanced with wisdom. My phone buzzed. Apex's overnight alerts from our Asian desk. A minor anomaly in Singapore trading patterns. Others might miss it. Owen would have dismissed it. I didn't. 2 hours later, we'd identified and stopped a potential manipulation that could have cost millions. "The ocean doesn't care about your business model," I told my team the next morning. "Neither do regulations. Respect both or drown." They nodded, understanding. These waters were deep, currents complex, pressure constant. But with the right systems, the right people, the right respect for expertise, you could navigate anything. I looked at my submarine models, each representing a lesson in engineering, in safety, in the price of ignored warnings. Integrity Financial had joined their ranks, a spectacular failure that taught the industry what I'd known all along. Innovation without wisdom is just recklessness with a PowerPoint. Compliance isn't paranoia, it's the rivets that keep the hull intact. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't action, it's precision. One email to the right person, one examiner who knows where to look, one system designed to document everything. I'd built my systems well. They'd done exactly what I'd designed them to do. Protect what they could, document what they couldn't, and wait for someone competent to read the logs. The submarine metaphor had come full circle. Integrity Financial now rested on the bottom, crushed by pressures they'd dismissed as paranoia. Ava Miller, drowning in lawsuits and debt, would never surface in finance again. Owen Miller, selling used cars in Jersey, had learned that an MBA doesn't make you unsinkable. Meanwhile, I was building better submarines, training better crews, protecting more treasure. One rivet at a time, one paranoid system at a time, one saved fortune at a time. Because in the end, expertise isn't redundant. It's the difference between floating and drowning. And I was done watching amateurs play with other people's lifeboats. The ocean always wins, but with the right knowledge you can sail it safely. That's not paranoia, that's professional survival. And I was very, very good at surviving.